Welcome to Zen Mind Sleep. Ah, my dear ones, come closer to the fire. The night air has a chill that seeps into the bones, doesn't it? I see the flicker of the flames reflected in your eyes, and I sense the shadows that have been dancing in your hearts tonight. Some of you carry the quiet ache of a loss that feels too fresh, like a wound that won't close. Others, perhaps, wrestle with the tangled threads of family, or simply woke at this hour with that peculiar, hollow feeling that life has lost its way. The crickets outside are singing their ancient song, a lullaby the earth whispers to itself. And the warmth of this teacup in my hands, it reminds me of so many evenings, so many long nights spent under the vast, watchful sky, just like this one. You are welcome here, my friends. Let your shoulders soften if you can. Let your breath find its own gentle rhythm. There's no hurry, no place to be. We are simply sharing this quiet space, this moment, between yesterday and tomorrow. I remember once, when I was a young monk, barely taller than a stack of prayer books, an old master told me something that puzzled me deeply at the time. He said that a human being could, in a single day, visit realms that others only spoke of in ancient myths or whispered legends. Not after death, he explained, but right here, in the unfolding of an ordinary afternoon. I saw the confusion on my own face then, much like I sense it on some of yours now. How could this be? How could one walk through hell or paradise while still stirring a pot of soup or mending a torn robe? But as the years turned, like the slow pages of a sacred text, I began to see what he meant. I saw it in the faces of the villagers, in the quiet corners of the monastery, and most vividly, in the restless mirror of my own mind. Have you ever noticed, my friends, how some days feel like they are spun from the same thread, even when the events themselves are different? Perhaps last Tuesday, or the one before that. The faces at the market changed, the words on the screen were new, but the feeling of the day, that particular hum of weariness, the faint tension in the jaw just before reaching for the kettle, it was all so strikingly familiar, like a song played on an endless loop always. The same melody, even with different instruments. For a long time, I too believed this was a personal failing, that something was inherently wrong with me. If only I meditated longer, woke earlier, drank less tea, or, in my younger days, perhaps found a different path or a new teacher, then this repetitive dance, this circling back to the same anxieties would finally cease. I've seen many, like you, my friends, move across mountains, leave behind old lives, start anew with fervent hope, all driven by this quiet desperation to break free from that familiar ache. And yet, the ache, the pattern, often follows like a shadow, no matter how far we run. But here is what the old teachers, those who sat under trees for years, came to understand. This is not a personal defect, my dear ones. No, not at all. It is simply how an unawakened human mind moves. Every mind, in its unexamined state, from the simplest villager to the wisest scholar, from the grandest emperor to the most humble servant, all are caught in this same intricate dance. Some, a few, eventually glimpse the rhythm. Most do not. And very few can, simply, will it to stop. The cleverest people I have known, those who devoured books and attended countless retreats, found themselves still caught, albeit perhaps in a more elegant cage. A life lived with ease and competence, yet still within this wandering is still the wandering. It is merely the same tune played in a different, perhaps softer key. 25 centuries ago, in the quiet groves of northern India, a word arose for this very mechanism. A word that has traveled through empires and across oceans, carried by the breath of countless generations. Samsara. Many translate it as reincarnation, and that is not wrong in its deepest sense. But its more immediate meaning, the one that touches our lives right now, is simply wandering on. The wandering is not just between lifetimes, you see. It is between states of mind, moment to moment, hour to hour, year to year. The same mind, left to its own devices, will continue to produce the same states, like a river carving the same path, unless something, some gentle awareness interrupts that flow. You, my friend, have been wandering on since breakfast, and I, this old monk, have wandered with you for much of my life. The great trick of this wandering, the one it plays with masterful skill, is that it convinces us it is us. That familiar tightness at 3 a.m. when worries gather like crows on a fence feels like your very life story, doesn't it? The restlessness at 6 p.m, the urge to pace or reach for something, it feels like the essence of who you are. But I assure you, my dear ones, none of it is truly you. It is simply the wheel, turning and wearing your face for a moment. I remember once reading a very old teaching, a discourse called the Tears Sutta. The Buddha, they say, spoke to his students, and his words were startling. He told them, if you could count the tears you have cried across all your wandering, across all the countless forms this mind has taken, the tears from loss, from fear, from the sheer grief of not knowing how to be, those tears would fill the 4 great oceans. Not the rivers, but the oceans. I sat for a long time with that image, listening to the rain outside my cell, imagining the vast, salty waters. He didn't choose that image for its grandeur, I believe. He chose it because the ocean is precisely what a mind produces when it has not yet seen itself clearly. Something vast, unknowable, moving constantly, almost impossible to find solid ground within. We have all been swimming in it, haven't we? For longer than any of us can remember. Tonight, this ocean is finally being given a name. And the purpose of naming it, my friends, is not to burden you further. No, it is meant to offer a quiet relief. It is meant to make you set down, even for a moment, whatever heavy thought you were carrying, and perhaps whisper to yourself, this cannot be mine alone. And indeed, it is not. This wandering, these shifting states of mind, this ocean of tears, it is our shared human inheritance. The price of a mind that does not yet see what it is doing. Feel, if you can, the gentle relief in that thought. If every human who has ever lived has been caught in this, then your not knowing how to escape is not a personal failure, my dear friend. It is the ordinary state of the unexamined mind. The real failure, I think, would be to believe, despite all of this, that you were supposed to have solved it entirely on your own, with sheer willpower alone. Another discourse, another quiet evening like this one, described samsara as something that can be seen, not just believed. Not taken on faith, but seen, the way you see a pattern in a piece of cloth once someone has pointed it out to you. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. The mind's relationship to it changes forever. You haven't left the cloth, no, but you know where the pattern is now. You know where the next stitch is coming. That is the quiet promise of El. This night, my dear ones, you will not be asked to believe anything. You will simply be shown a pattern. And when you see it, you will recognize it. And when you recognize it, something in your relationship to that pattern will gently shift. The shift happens on its own, you see. Recognition accomplishes this without needing your active effort or straining. This pattern, this turning wheel, has 6 rooms, not more, not fewer. 6 distinct states of mind that every human mind cycles through, often in a single day. We will walk through them together in our stories tonight. The room of paradise, where wanting nothing feels like the sole problem. The realm of the ambitious, where winning becomes a kind of sustenance. The realm that obeys without thinking, where routine swallows the hours whole. The realm that cannot stop wanting, where the wanting itself is the hunger. The realm that cannot stop hurting, where the pain seems to have no end. And the human realm, the strangest of the 6, the rarest, the only one from which the door truly opens. All 6 are with you now, in this very moment. One of them might be louder than the others, depending on the hour. Another might have been quiet for a few days, but it will surely return. And you, my friend, will begin to recognize every one of them as it arrives. Just for a moment, let your attention drift. Don't strain, just notice. Where has your mind been in the last half hour since you settled by this fire? Was there a small pull, a faint craving, an itch to check something, a whisper of an urge to eat something you weren't truly hungry for? That was one realm. Was there a moment of mild pride, a small, private satisfaction that a memory or a thought, perhaps noticing someone doing something less well than you would have? That was another. Was there a flicker of fear? A memory of an email, a bill, a future conversation that tightened your chest before you even finished the thought? That was another. Was there a flat stretch, perhaps as you listened to my voice, where you were simply present, without choosing, without really noticing you were doing it at all? That was another still. And was there a moment of quiet warmth? A brief feeling that everything was, for a few seconds, enough? That was another realm. Do you see what just happened, my dear one? You moved through several distinct states of mind in just a few minutes, without knowing you were moving, without deciding, without noticing the transitions. This, you see, is the speed at which the wheel actually runs. Not the grand cosmic speed of lifetimes, but the speed of a single afternoon, a single hour, a single breath. You have been wandering since you sat down, without telling yourself, without tracking any of it. That is the wheel. A wheel you cannot see, my friends, is the hardest kind of wheel to be on. You experience every realm as simply how reality is in that moment. When wanting is loud, the world is the wanting. When fear is loud, the world is the fear. When the day is flat and obedient, the flatness feels like the whole of what is true. But a wheel you can see, you can learn to step off. It takes time, yes, but the ability becomes available to you in a way it was not before. The step is not physical, you understand. It is attentional. You have already taken a small version of it tonight simply by listening, simply by noticing this pattern I speak of. Most people you see never look. They live an entire life without once turning their attention back onto the wandering itself. But you, my friend, you are already not doing that. This, I believe, is what those 49 nights were for the man who sat beneath the Bodhi tree. He sat there, they say, until he had seen the full mechanism of the wheel. Every link, every engine, every spoke of the rim. What he found, my dear ones, is not locked in any ancient language, hidden behind dusty scrolls. It is available to any mind willing to look carefully at itself, just as you are doing now. The teaching that came out of those nights has been carried in specific words for 25 centuries. It survived empires and translations, the collapse of civilizations, the burning of monasteries, and the slow distortions that time inflicts upon everything precious. It survived because it works. It works the way a map of a real building works when you are lost inside that very building. In the quiet hours ahead, we will sit with him, with that man under the tree. You will sit as someone who has also felt the weight of the wandering and wondered, perhaps, whether there truly was a way out. What he saw in the third watch of that final night did not require his lineage, his caste, his tradition, or his century. It only required a mind willing to stop running and look. And you, my friend, you have precisely that. You have arrived here to this fire with precisely that willingness. Imagine, if you will, a particular evening, a long, long time ago. The season is late spring, much like the one that just passed. The air is heavy with that gentle warmth that carries the faint scent of the river nearby. A man in his middle 30s, Siddhartha Gautama, is sitting beneath a fig tree on the eastern bank of the Niranjana River, a place that many years later would come to be known as Bodh Gaya. He has been seated there since before sundown. He has decided quietly in the depths of his being that he will not rise again until he has seen clearly what keeps the mind turning through its own suffering. He does not know how long it will take. He has not told anyone. His legs, they say, will remain folded under him for 49 nights. What he saw in those nights was not some grand vision, no. It was not a revelation from some distant, otherworldly place. It was simply what the mind looks like when it finally stops running long enough to truly see itself work. The old texts describe this awakening in 3 watches, 3 profound movements across a single culminating night. In the first watch of the night, he saw the long chain of his own wandering stretching backward through countless forms, countless lives. In the second watch, he saw this same chain operating in every life around him. The same mechanism, the same ceaseless production inside every mind. And then, in the third watch of the night, just before the first blush of dawn touched the eastern sky, he saw how the mechanism actually works. And what did those first 2 watches do to him, my friend? They dissolved the last remnants of his belief that any of this was personal. His own chain of suffering and every other mind's chain were made of the very same material. Whatever he was about to see in that final, illuminating watch, he knew it would be true for every human being who has ever drawn a breath. That, you see, is the seeing we are here for tonight. The name the tradition gives to what he saw in the third watch is Paticca Samuppada. In English, it is usually translated as dependent origination or dependent co-arising. Both translations are accurate, yes, but neither quite captures the actual experience of it. The actual experience, I imagine, is closer to this: a sudden, complete, undeniable sight of the gears. The gears are always turning, my friends. They are turning inside you right now as you listen to my voice as the fire crackles softly. But because they turn at the very speed of your own attention, you cannot usually see them, any more than a fish can see the water it swims in. What he did that night was slow his attention down enough to finally see the water. Here is what he saw. He saw that every moment of suffering the mind produces has a structure. Not a moral structure, mind you, not a cosmic punishment for some past deed. No, a functional, mechanical, almost visible structure, like the intricate linkage inside an old clock. If one link goes missing, the next link simply does not arise. If the whole chain is interrupted at any point, the wheel loses its fuel, just for that moment. The tradition names 12 links in that chain, my friends. We will not walk through all 12 tonight. That is the work of another 3 hours, perhaps another lifetime, and another tradition's quiet study. But we will walk through just enough of the chain to let you see the gears inside a moment of your own day. Let us begin with something utterly ordinary. A notification on your phone, perhaps. Your phone is face down on the table, just as it might be at this very moment, or perhaps it sits silently in your pocket. Then it buzzes once. A small, almost imperceptible tremor. This, you see, is the first link in a very ordinary form of this chain. Contact. A sense organ meets an object. In this case, your ear meets a small vibration, or your palm feels the faint tremor. Contact has occurred. Before you can even truly think about it, something else happens inside you. Something is already leaning toward that phone. Not consciously, no. This leaning, this subtle pull, is happening at a speed below thought, below conscious choice. This is the next link. Feeling tone. The mind has instantly, automatically labeled that buzz as pleasant or potentially interesting, potentially significant, potentially something worth turning toward. Notice. This, my friends, no one decided this. The feeling tone arose on its own, shaped by every previous time a buzzing phone produced something pleasant or important or exciting for this mind. It's like the reflex of a flower turning towards the sun before it even knows what the sun is. Now, watch the next link arise. Wanting. A small, sharp, almost imperceptible wanting to look, to know. The ancient Pali word for this is tanha, craving, thirst. It is the engine, my friends, of the whole chain. That simple buzz has now become a small thirst inside you. You are not yet holding the phone, but the thirst has already formed. It's like the parched traveler, seeing a mirage in the desert, and the thirst for water intensifies before a single step is taken. And then, clinging. The thirst grasps. The mind, in its imagination, has already picked up the phone. Whatever you were doing a second ago, reading a book, listening to my voice, stirring your tea, it has become less real, less important than the promise of that phone. The clinging is so fast, so seamless, you often don't even feel it as a separate event. It simply feels like wanting to check. The mind has attached itself like a burr to a sleeve. Next comes becoming. A version of you, a fleeting identity has formed briefly around the phone. The person who checks, the identity that says without words, this is the kind of person I am right now, and this is what I do. You are for a moment defined by this action, this leaning toward the screen. And finally, birth, and then aging and death. That may sound grand, my friends, for a mere phone notification, but it is precise. A state of mind was born. The checking person was pulled into the phone's small world. That state, that identity, will age. It will decay. It will end when the screen locks again or when the message is read and dismissed. And another little death of that self will occur. A new link in a new chain will begin the moment after. Count how long that took, my dear ones. 8 links, from a simple buzz to a small dying of the checking self, all in somewhere between 4 and 12 seconds. And before your next breath has fully arrived, the whole chain has often begun again. Another buzz, another pleasant tone, another small thirst, another checking self. Briefly born, briefly ended. That, my friends, is one turn of the wheel. You do this, we all do this, thousands of times a day. With phones, yes, but also with passing thoughts, with shifting moods, with fleeting expressions on the faces of the people you love. Every one of those turns is a full chain, and every one produces a tiny version of suffering. Even when the buzz brings good news, because every turn ends, every version of the checking self has to die, and the next turn has to start without it. This, my friends, is what the Buddha saw in the third watch of that night. Not a grand theology, not a ladder of spiritual stages, no, a mechanism. The intricate mechanism that makes an ordinary mind into a factory of small deaths, millions of times over across an entire life. And then he saw something else, something truly liberating. He saw that every link, every single one, is conditioned. Nothing in the chain arises on its own power, you see. Each link needs the one before it in order to appear. Which means, my friends, if any link fails to arise, the whole chain for that moment simply ends. Imagine it. Remove contact. Your phone stays silent, or you are not in the room when it buzzes. The chain never even begins. Remove feeling tone. You meet the buzz with a mind so settled, so quiet, that it does not label the sound as pleasant or unpleasant, simply as sound. The chain collapses at link 2. Remove craving. You feel the pleasant quality of the buzz, perhaps even a gentle curiosity, but without reaching for it, without that sharp pull of thirst. The chain collapses at link 3. In each case, the suffering that was about to be produced simply does not arise. The buzz still happens. The mind remains whole, undisturbed. No small death occurs. This, my friends, is the liberation. Not a dramatic thunderclap liberation, no. A quiet, specific, engineered collapse of the chain at a single link. One turn of the wheel that does not complete, then another, then another. Eventually, the wheel has lost so much fuel that it is no longer the main thing happening inside you. This is why, in an old discourse called the Pakaya Sutta, the Buddha used a particular phrase. He said the law of dependent arising is not dependent on him. Whether a Buddha arises in the world or not, this is simply how phenomena condition one another. Whether you believe it or not, my friend, this is how your Tuesday afternoon is being built. He wasn't giving you a doctrine to cling to. He was simply describing the weather. And you cannot argue with the rain, can you? You can only learn how it works well enough to step out of it when it begins to fall. Feel what this means, my dear ones. The wandering is not a curse. It is not some grand cosmic karma in the movie sense. It is not the universe teaching you a harsh lesson. It is simply a chain of conditioned events, each one arising because the one before it arose, each one dissolving when the one before it dissolves. The whole of it is available to clear seeing. Every link is a doorway. You do not need to be the Buddha to collapse a chain. You can do it. Right now, on the smallest possible scale. Try this gently, my friends. Think of something mildly irritating that happened today. A message you didn't quite like, a tone of voice from a loved one, a task you were given that you resented, even just a little. Notice inside your body the place where that irritation still lives. Perhaps a small tightness in the jaw, maybe a slight heat behind the eyes, a shortening of the breath, a bracing in the chest. That, my friends, is the middle of a chain. Contact happened hours ago. Feeling tone arose. Craving arose. The craving to push the thing away, to be right about it, to explain it, to replay it endlessly in your mind. Clinging arose, and a self formed around it. The aggrieved person, the one who was wronged. Now, just for this moment, let the craving loosen. You don't have to get rid of it, no. You only have to stop feeding it. Let the irritation sit where it sits, without chasing a conclusion about it, without building a story around it. Watch what happens to that aggrieved self. It thins. It doesn't vanish entirely, no. It hasn't been defeated. It has simply lost the fuel it needs to become the main event inside you. That, my friends, is a chain collapsing at link 3. That is a small gear disengaging. That is, in miniature, what the Buddha was describing for the last 40 years of his life. The thinning is not dramatic, no. It will not show up on any scan. Nobody standing near you would even notice it happened. But something in your mind, my dear one, has just discovered that the aggrieved self is not compulsory. That single, quiet discovery is the seed of every later liberation. The wheel is not stopped in a single blow like a grand feat of strength. It is stopped one disengaged gear at a time over a long and patient relationship with your own attention. But here's the thing that made him sit still for 49 nights, that made him endure the aches and the elements. Every chain you collapse, even once, teaches the mind something profound. The mind begins to suspect that the next chain might also be optional, and the one after that. The whole wheel, which once seemed as solid and unchangeable as the weather itself, begins to look like something that was being held in place by quiet habits of attention. And you, my friend, you are already at the beginning of that suspicion, simply by listening here tonight. In the stories ahead, we will do something specific with this mechanism. We will walk into each of the 6 realms, each of the 6 rooms your mind keeps returning to, and we will see the chain that builds that particular room. We will see which link is the most available to loosen and how. You will leave tonight with a quiet map of your own wheel, drawn not with ink, but with the subtle wisdom of your own experience. Before we enter the first realm, there is one more thing we need, my friends. A name for what actually drives the chain from the inside. What makes contact keep turning into craving? What keeps feeding the gears, moment after moment? At the very center of the wheel of life, in every ancient painting of this teaching, there are three animals coiled together: a pig, a snake, a rooster. They are still turning your wheel right now, in this moment, in this room, in this quiet night. Return for a moment to a typical Tuesday afternoon. Not this one, but an average one from the last 2 weeks. It's around 3:30. The light is getting soft in the window, perhaps like the light outside earlier today. You've made your third cup of tea or coffee of the day. It's half drunk, cooling on the table. You are sitting in front of a screen that contains, among other things, an email you have already read 7 times. You are not really working, but you are not really resting either. Your hand moves without asking. You open a second tab. You close it. You open the same tab again. You stand up. You walk to the window. You walk back. You sit down. You reach for the phone. Inside this small, unglamorous, extremely ordinary 15 minutes, my friends, 3 ancient forces are running. They are what the old ones called the 3 poisons. In the Anguttara Nikaya, the Buddha named them with unusual plainness: greed, hatred, and delusion. He called them the 3 unwholesome roots. Every moment of suffering a human mind produces grows from one of these 3, or often from all 3 at once. The ancient paintings of the Wheel of Life place them at the very center of the hub. 3 small animals coiled together, biting each other's tails. A rooster for greed, its head turning toward whatever catches the eye. A snake for hatred, its head drawn back, ready to strike. A pig for delusion, its slow, half-asleep body that does not know where it is or where it is going. They are still at the center of your afternoon, my dear ones. Greed, you see, is not what you think it is. It is not merely the desire for expensive things, for grand homes or glittering jewels. It is not ambition in the ordinary sense, not wanting a nicer apartment or a better job. Those are merely symptoms, reflections on the surface. The root is simpler, more subtle, and far more constant than any of its symptoms. Greed is the small, almost invisible movement of the mind toward something pleasant, and its quiet refusal to stay where it already is. Notice that movement happening right now, perhaps. Your attention, even as you listen to my voice, keeps testing the air for something more interesting, something more engaging than this sentence. It isn't doing anything wrong, my friend. It is simply being a mind. A mind left untrained, you see, is like that small rooster, its head turning toward whatever glints next. On your Tuesday afternoon, greed is in that extra cup of coffee. Greed is in the phone reach. Greed is in the moment you open the second tab before you have finished the sentence in the first tab. Greed is, at its most ordinary, the inability to be where you actually are. And it is exhausting, my dear friends. That is the thing the tradition noticed early. Greed does not feel like pleasure, not true pleasure. It feels like a kind of hunger that will never tell you what it is truly hungry for. Chasing it is what most people mean when they simply say they are tired. The second poison is hatred, and the English word I find can be misleading. You do not have to hate anyone to be under its influence. The ancient Pali word covers a much wider range: aversion, resistance, resentment, the quiet turning away from anything that makes you uncomfortable. On your Tuesday afternoon, hatred is in the 7th reread of that difficult email. Each reread is the mind sharpening its argument against something, against someone, against a situation. Hatred is in the decision to scroll endlessly through your phone instead of feeling whatever is actually underneath that restlessness in your chest. Hatred is in the tone you used at dinner the night before, which you have now replayed 3 times in your head, making it a little worse each time. It is not loud, my friends. Most of the hatred in a modern life is not loud. It is the subtle tightening around whatever we do not want to feel. It is the snake coiled quietly around the chest, ready to strike, but often striking only inward. The tradition is very clear about what hatred does. It narrows the mind. It shrinks the range of what the mind can perceive, like tunnel vision. When aversion is loud, there is only one thing in the room, whatever it is that the mind is turning against. The soft light outside the window, you do not see it. Someone speaks kindly and you cannot truly take it in. The whole field of your experience has been replaced by a single, sharpened point of resistance. The third poison is the hardest to see, my friends, because it is the very ground the other two stand on. Delusion. It is not a failure to be intelligent. No, it is a specific failure of sight. The mind takes whatever it is currently experiencing to be simply how things are, instead of how things are appearing in this particular mind at this particular moment. Every time you believe the story your mind is telling you fully, without any distance from it, delusion is active. Every time a mood feels like the truth about your entire life, delusion is active. Every time your partner's sentence, cold in your ears, is taken as confirmation of the thing you most feared, delusion is active. On your Tuesday afternoon, delusion is the slow, half-asleep quality of that whole 15 minutes of wandering. You are not truly aware you are on the phone. You are not truly aware that there is a choice, moment by moment, between this and something else. You are the pig in the ancient painting, your eyes nearly closed, your body moving out of long habit, following the faint scent of whatever the last craving picked up. The old texts, like the Itavutika, place delusion first of the 3, in the sense that both greed and hatred depend on it. Without delusion, greed has nothing to pursue, because the mind would see clearly that nothing external can truly fill it. Without delusion, hatred has nothing to fight, because the mind would see clearly that whatever is in front of it is passing anyway. Delusion, you see, is what keeps the other 2 running. In another discourse, the Nidana Sutta, the Buddha puts it even more practically, almost like a farmer speaking of seeds. He says, actions born from greed, hatred, or delusion ripen wherever the person goes, in whatever body, in whatever moment. You cannot outrun an action planted in these 3, my friends. It follows you not as a punishment, no, but as a seed that was planted, waiting for the right conditions to grow. Come back to those 15 minutes of your average Tuesday afternoon. In that single, ordinary stretch of time, you have felt all 3. The rooster was in the phone reach, the turning head. The snake was in the email reread, the subtle resistance. The pig was in the slow blur of the whole thing, the half-sleep. They were not three separate forces behaving in sequence, you understand. They were three aspects of a single, disturbed state, turning like a small storm behind your ribs. This is what the Buddha meant by calling them the three roots. They grow together, they feed each other, and they are almost always active at once. In the Dhammapada, he gave the clearest possible line about their character. There is no fire like lust. There is no grip like hatred. There is no snare like delusion. Take each one slowly, my friends. Lust burns. It is hot, fast, and leaves you scorched and still hungry. Hatred grips. It is clinging tight and refuses to let the object go, even once the situation is ended. Delusion snares. It is quiet, almost invisible, and traps you by convincing you that you are free to move, when in fact, you are bound. These are not theological metaphors, no. These are precise descriptions of what happens inside a body, inside a mind, when each poison is in charge. This is also why the tradition has spent 25 centuries naming them so carefully. A force that has no name, my friends, often runs you entirely. A force that has a name, you can learn to sit beside. And here is where the teaching becomes gentle again. The three poisons are not enemies you need to defeat, to vanquish in some heroic battle. They are patterns in the mind. Patterns as old as this species, as old as humanity. Patterns that arose because the mind was trying, in its own confused way, to protect you. The rooster, in its turning, was trying to get you fed, to find something good. The snake was trying to keep you safe, to push away discomfort. The pig was trying not to be overwhelmed, to find a moment of peace, even if it was a foggy one. None of them, my friends, is evil. None of them needs to be destroyed. They only need to be seen. Seeing loosens them. Naming loosens them. Simply recognizing in the moment that a particular force is currently running is the first thing that weakens its grip. Not because recognition is some magical technique, no, but because the poisons only function when the mind is entirely fused with them. The moment the mind sees them clearly, that fusion, that deep entanglement, breaks. Try it, even in miniature, my friends. The next time you find yourself reaching for the phone when you didn't mean to, that sudden, almost unconscious pull, name it silently to yourself. Rooster. That is the whole practice. You don't have to stop reaching, no. You don't have to scold the mind or fight the urge. You only have to name the pattern that is currently turning. Watch how the reach changes when it has been named. Something small but real loosens. The next time you catch yourself rereading a message you don't want to reply to, feeling that resistance, that subtle aversion, name it. Snake. And the next time you notice you've been scrolling for 20 minutes and have no idea what you even saw, lost in a blur of images and words, name it. Pig. That, my dear friends, is the practice. Small, silent, repeated over hundreds of afternoons, over countless moments, until the naming becomes automatic and the fusion never quite fully forms. These three forces, you see, turn the wheel, and the wheel has 6 rooms. 6 states of mind a person can wake into on any ordinary Thursday, any ordinary day. 6 complete worlds, each with its own weather, its own logic, its own peculiar kind of suffering. Over the next several stories, we will enter each one. We will stay long enough to recognize it as a place you have surely been, and you will leave, perhaps knowing the particular door out of it. The first room, my friends, is the most comfortable of the six. It is also perhaps the most deceiving. There is a particular quality to an afternoon when nothing is wrong. The tea is the right temperature, just like this. The message you were dreading never came. The sun is slanting through the window, painting golden stripes on the floor, the way it did when you were a child, when summer felt endless and Monday was a word that hadn't been invented yet. This, my friends, is the first room. The Buddha gave it a simple name, the realm of the Devas, the God realm. He meant a state of mind you have entered many times for short stretches without ever naming it. It is the room where the sharp edges of wanting go soft, where the body feels it has enough, where the mind, for a little while, stops counting, stops grasping. Notice the bodily signature, my friends. The shoulders have dropped a quarter inch, just like I asked you to do earlier. The jaw has remembered there is no reason to clench. The breath reaches a little deeper than it did an hour ago. A sigh of quiet contentment. There is a faint warmth behind the ribs, as if some small hidden furnace has finally been fed. You visit this room, my dear ones, on Sunday afternoons when the week's work is done and the week's dread has not yet started to stir. You visit it for 90 seconds after a good meal, before the next thought, the next plan arrives. You visited it this morning, perhaps, in the shower, that small stretch where nothing was being asked of you, where the warm water washed away the edges of worry. You visit it in the car, sometimes at the red light, just before the green, when a song you had forgotten comes on, and for 30 seconds you are 14 again, lost in a memory, a feeling of effortless ease. The God realm is the softest of the six. It is also the most deceiving. Here is what the Buddha saw. The mind in the God realm forgets something crucial. It forgets that this state will end. Ask the person in the soft afternoon, is this permanent? They will laugh, of course, and say, of course not. Yet underneath that answer, in the quiet place where the mind actually lives, a subtler, quieter belief has settled in. This feeling, this ease, this version of Sunday, this is the real one. The other hours, the anxious ones, the tight ones, the rooms that came before, those were the aberration. This is how it should be. This is how eventually it will stay. That quiet belief, my friends, is the poison at the center of the room. The Pali word for it is mana, the conceit that takes ease and calls it a destination. It is subtler than what we usually mean by conceit. It is the way the mind, when it is comfortable, simply stops looking around, stops paying attention. Look at what the comfortable mind stops seeing. It stops seeing the man at the traffic light with the cardboard sign, the one it would have noticed on a hard day, when its own difficulties made it more attuned to the suffering of others. It stops hearing the faint tremor in a friend's voice in a message, which, on closer listening, was not quite right. It stops feeling the small tightness in its own chest, the tightness that, if attended to, might have said something important, something needing care. It stops wondering about the older relative who has gone quiet for a week. It stops sensing the small strain in the body that is whispering very softly for rest, for a change of posture. The God realm, you see, has a signature blindness. It cannot see the poor. And it cannot see the poorness in itself either, The places where the pleasure has quietly borrowed from somewhere and the debt has not yet been called in. There is a verse in the Dhammapada that speaks to this, my friends. The Buddha says it plainly. From pleasure comes grief. From pleasure comes fear. For one who is free from pleasure, there is no grief. Whence fear? Listen to that again, my dear ones. He said that pleasure, when it is taken as the thing itself, as permanent, becomes the very seed of the grief that follows it. Because pleasure ends, you see, and the mind that was resting so deeply in it is not prepared for its ending. Think of the last really good week you had, my friend. The one where the work was flowing effortlessly, the relationships were easy, harmonious. You slept well for 4 nights in a row, a rare blessing. The body, for once, did not wake you at 4 a.m. with some nameless worry. What happened on the 5th day? Something shifted, didn't it? A message did not arrive as expected. A small pain returned to your lower back, a familiar ache. The weather turned gray. Someone said something in a flat tone you had not heard from them before. A tiny discord. Here is the strange part, my friends. The fall from the 5th day was not proportional to what actually changed. The disappointment was far larger than the disappointing thing itself. That, my dear ones, is the God realm collapsing. The mind had begun to lease the good week as permanent, as a new lasting state, and the contract, which the world never actually signed, turned out to be void. The Tibetan teachers put this very plainly, in their own way. They said the beings of the God realm live very long lives. They live surrounded by beauty and ease. They forget that anything ever suffered, that impermanence exists. And then, near the end of their long lives, the signs begin to arrive. The old teachers named them one by one. The flower garland at the neck, which never faded, begins to wither. The celestial robes, which for 1,000 years have smelled of sandalwood, lose their fragrance. The skin, which had never once sweated, grows damp. The companions who seemed forever present drift away. The throne, which had been comfortable forever, stops holding the body just right. And the diva realizes, in a sudden, collapsing hour, that the afternoon was not eternal, and the fall from it will be steep, painful. You do not need to believe in celestial beings to feel this, my friends. You have been the deva at the end of his flower garland. You were this person at the end of the good holiday, on the last evening of the long weekend when the Monday email had not yet been read but was already sitting in the inbox, already tightening the stomach with its silent presence. The flowers were withering. The robes were losing their fragrance. The room was beginning to end. You have also been the deva at the end of a love, at the end of a career chapter, at the end of a friendship that once felt permanent, unshakable. The sign does not always arrive as a grand disaster, no. Often it arrives as an afternoon that is a 1/4 inch less bright than yesterday's. A conversation that goes cool in a way you cannot quite name. The garland is so delicate, you only see it withering when you specifically look for it. What does the practitioner do in this room, my friends? The practitioner stays. The teaching asks for something quieter than refusal, you see. Ascetics, in their fervent pursuit of liberation, often refuse pleasure, starve themselves of ease, distrust every soft afternoon. The Buddha himself walked that path for 6 years, they say, eating 1 grain of rice a day until his spine could be felt from the front of his belly. and he found that the starving mind is no closer to freedom than the satisfied one. He rejected it as useless. No, the practitioner stays in the room, and they see it. They notice the warmth behind the ribs, and they notice underneath the warmth that small, quiet belief that this warmth will continue. They see the belief without dismantling the warmth itself. They enjoy the afternoon without asking the afternoon to be more than just an afternoon. This is the practice the Buddha called appamada. The word means heedful. Staying awake inside comfort instead of falling asleep inside it. In the Dhammapada, he said it this way, and I remember hearing this verse many times as a young monk. Heedfulness is the path to the deathless. Heedlessness is the path to death. The heedful do not die. The heedless are as if already dead. He is describing what happens to the god who sleeps inside his palace, the one who stops noticing, who lets the hours slide by on the belief that nothing will ever be asked of him, the mind that has stopped being present for its own life, because its life is, for a short season, easy. Try something right now, my friend, where you are sitting. If the moment you are in has any quality of comfort, the chair is fine, the body is fed, the next hour has nothing demanding in it, notice that. Let it be here. See that it is here. Feel the small places in the body that are resting, the shoulders, the jaw, the space behind the eyes. And notice quietly, with a gentle understanding, that it will pass. That second noticing is the one the God realm so easily forgets. When. Both are held at the same time. The enjoyment and the ending, the room becomes safe. The pleasure can be received without the debt being accumulated, because the mind has stopped pretending the pleasure was earned forever. The mind that cannot see its own ending is the mind that will fall hardest when the ending arrives. And the ending, my friends, always arrives. The Sunday becomes Monday. The holiday has a last day. The good year has a December. The healthy body eventually has a morning when it is not healthy any longer. The soft afternoon has an evening that begins to cool, and then a night. There is one more thing to see in this room before we leave it, my dear ones. The God realm shows up at every scale. Whole cultures live there. Whole decades live there. A city at the peak of its prosperity. A company in the year before the market turns. A generation that has forgotten the wars of its grandparents, believing hardship is a thing of the past. A body in its early 30s, still untouched by any serious illness, convinced somewhere underneath that the body will always be this strong, this vibrant. They are all, for a while, in the first room, and they are all, for a while, blind in the particular way that room makes you blind. This, my friends, is a diagnosis, not a judgment. When you find yourself, or your family, or your country in a soft season, do one thing. Remember that seasons end. Then enjoy the soft season without clutching at it. Let the tea be hot for as long as it is hot, and let it become room temperature when it does. That, my friends, is what a heedful life looks like. So the first room is not a room to flee from. No, it is a room to stay awake inside of. You have visited it today, probably for some minutes, perhaps just now as you listened to these words by the fire. You will visit it tomorrow. And when you do, try this, my friend. Let the pleasure be real. And let it be ending, both at once. That is the beginning of freedom from the first room. The practitioner notices with kindness that the petals are already falling, even as they bloom. And then, having been a god for an afternoon, they are ready to see what happens in the next room. Because the second room, my friends, is very close to this one. It begins the moment the pleasure in the first room meets someone else's pleasure. And the mind, which a moment ago was at ease, begins very quietly, almost imperceptibly, to compare. The first comparison is always quiet, a subtle shift. You are in your own Sunday afternoon, that soft one from the last room, feeling content, perhaps watching the last embers of the fire. And then your phone lights up. A name you haven't seen in 3 years. A photo. They are standing on a balcony in a city you have never been to, holding a glass of something sunset-colored, and the caption says 4 words you did not expect to read. Life couldn't be better. Something shifts in your stomach, a small tilting of the ground underneath your perfectly comfortable afternoon. 30 seconds ago, your tea was the right temperature. Now the tea is just tea, and the window, which was slanting summer, light, is just a window. The afternoon, which had been enough, has discovered in an instant that it is not. You have just entered the second room. The Buddha called its inhabitants the asuras, the demigods. In English, teachers usually call it the demigod realm. It is the realm right next door to the first one you see. So close, in fact, that some old texts say the two share a border, and the border is a tree. The tree has many names in the old scriptures: the wish-fulfilling tree, the coral tree, the parijata. Its roots are planted deep in the demigod realm. Its branches reach up into the god realm, and the fruit, the most delicious fruit, grows only where the branches are, high up. The asuras plant the seeds. The asuras water the roots. The asuras tend the soil and watch the trunk grow through their floor and up into the ceiling. And the devas, sitting in the upper branches, eat the fruit. This is the old story, my friends. It is not really a story about trees, you understand. It is a story about every afternoon when you realize the colleague who seemed to do less somehow ended up with more. Every year when the friend who worked fewer hours got the raise. Every time the life you had been planting, nurturing, turned out to bear its finest fruit for someone else's branch. The old teachers named the asura's signature poison. The Pali word is isa. It means envy, the theatrical envy of fairy tales. The green-faced kind with witches and mirrors is only the caricature, the exaggerated shadow. The real Isa is quieter, more subtle. It is what the mind feels when it cannot stop noticing what someone else has, and simultaneously, what it does not. Look at the signature, my friends. The asura wants what the person above him has, always. His own possessions, his own achievements, his own blessings have become almost invisible to him. And when he finally climbs to where that person was, the person is moved higher, and the wanting moves with him, relentlessly. The asura is perpetually 5 minutes behind a life that is not yet his. A life that, even when it finally arrives, immediately moves just out of reach again. Notice the bodily signature of this room. The breath is shallow, often caught high in the chest. The jaw is braced as if measuring, constantly assessing. The eyes are scanning, always looking, comparing. The chest has a low hum in it, a continuous low-grade tension that the mind narrates as ambition, as striving, but the body quietly knows is pain. You visit this room more than any other, my friends, probably many times a day. It arrives when a coworker's promotion is announced and your congratulations feel a little hollow. It arrives when the younger cousin's engagement is shared in the family chat and a tiny pang echoes in your own heart. It arrives when the friend posts the apartment, a good one, a slightly better one than yours, and you scroll past it, pretending you haven't seen it, but the image lingers. It arrives at funerals too, sometimes, in the small stab when a colleague is praised by a person whose praise you yourself wanted. The quiet registering at the wake of a mutual friend, of which mourners were mentioned by name and which were not. Isa does not wait for dignified occasions, my friends. Isa arrives whenever someone else is simply having a moment. The asura in the old iconography is usually pictured holding a weapon, and the old stories describe the asuras as always at war, fighting endlessly against the devas for the fruit of the tree. They plant harder, they work harder, they organize, they scheme, and the devas in the upper branches continue to eat, seemingly effortlessly. Here is what the old teachers saw, with a clarity that cut through the illusion. The asura's war cannot be won. It cannot be won because the tree is a disguise. The tree is the mind itself, busy, always trying to catch up to its own image of what it should have by now. When the asura finally climbs into the upper branches, the branches themselves move. Higher branches appear, glittering just out of reach. New fruit grows somewhere the asura has not yet climbed. The image of the life the asura is owed has always been and will always be just slightly above him. This is why the traditional Buddhist map puts the demigod realm among the realms of suffering. The asuras live close to paradise. They can see it through the leaves. They can hear the devas laughing, but they cannot taste it. The distance between their branch and the fruit is exactly the distance between the life you have and the life your social media feed keeps showing you someone else has. There is a teaching in the Pali Canon about this kind of pain, my dear ones. A monk once asked the Buddha why people who have done no great harm often suffer so much. The Buddha answered that one of the quieter sources of suffering is the habit of measuring one's own life against the lives of others. He called it a thorn driven into the heart by the practitioner themselves. The thorn cannot be removed by getting more of what the other has. No, the thorn is removed by seeing that it was never about the other at all. Look at the mind in Isa carefully. It is rarely truly looking at the other person. It is using the other person as a mirror that shows the mind what it does not yet have. The suffering, you see, is entirely in the mirror, not in the reality. The colleague's promotion becomes the measurement of your own standing. The cousin's engagement becomes the calendar against which your own years are audited, harshly. The friend's apartment becomes the map you have been failing to follow. And all the time, the mind is doing something the old teachers warned about. It is grasping at comparison, as if comparison itself could make a life. Comparison is a measuring tool, my friends. It has never, not once, built a single life. There is a story the Tibetan teachers tell about this, a poignant one. An asura climbed the Parijata tree for 100 years, his body aching, his hands raw. When he finally reached the very top branch, bleeding, exhausted, triumphant, he opened his hand to take the glorious fruit. But the fruit, you see, had already been taken. A deva, in the next branch was chewing it, smiling absent-mindedly, utterly unaware of the Asura's long struggle. The Asura looked down at his empty hand, then up at the Deva. Then, with a sigh that carried the weight of ages, he began to climb again. This, my friends, is the tragedy of the second room. The Asura cannot stop climbing, even when he suspects the fruit will always be gone by the time he arrives, because something in him would rather keep climbing than sit still on a branch he already has and eat the smaller, perfectly ripe fruit that grew there. What does the practitioner do in this room? Ambition is allowed, my friends. Striving is allowed. The practitioner does one specific thing differently. When the stomach tilts at the news of someone else's flourishing, at that balcony photo or that promotion, the practitioner pauses. They stop climbing just for a moment, and they try something that is almost impossible at first. They rejoice. The Pali name for this practice is mudita, sympathetic joy. It is the practice of feeling in your own chest the warmth of the other person's warmth, as if it were your own. The mind that was tilted by the photo on the balcony can learn, slowly, with practice, to see that photo as a gift, a moment of shared human joy. The wound was never in the photo itself, you see. The wound was in the measuring. When mudita arrives, even for 1 second, the tree disappears. There is no contested fruit. There is no upper branch. There is just one person's good moment, received by another person without measurement, without judgment, without comparison. The second room empties out, my friends. Both rooms, in fact, empty out because the whole architecture of comparison was holding them both up. Try this quietly, my friend, with the next person whose good news tilts you, whose success sends that familiar pang through your chest. Before the mind starts measuring, before the comparisons begin their dance, say one sentence inwardly. May their good thing be genuinely good for them. Just that. Do not make it larger. Do not attach a prayer or a grand wish. Just let the sentence be. And notice what happens in your chest. Something loosens the first time you do this. Something surprising. The body might rebel for half a second because the body is so used to the adrenaline of comparison and experiences its absence as a small withdrawal. And then, underneath that withdrawal, a second feeling arrives, a small warmth. The body is actually made for this, you see. The heart opens, the chest warms. The measuring stops just long enough for the afternoon, for your own presence to come back. The Asura realm does not vanish because you visited mudita once. No. You will re-enter this room, probably before the evening is out, before this night gives way to dawn. The practice of sympathetic joy is slow. It does not convert the whole mind in one Sunday. It works one small tilt at a time, one photo at a time, one piece of family news at a time. The tree is tall, and the climb has been long. Coming down is slower than climbing was. Every practitioner who has walked this path says the same thing about the second room. The fruit you were climbing for was never real. The branch you were already on had fruit that you did not even notice, so busy were you looking up. And the piece of the first room, the one next door, has always been available to anyone willing to stop climbing for long enough to taste what is already in their hand. There is one more thing to see in this room before we leave it, my friends. The Asura realm shows up at every scale. Whole industries live there, driven by the relentless pursuit of being better than. Whole nations do, measuring their worth against others. A tech company during its stock climb. A political movement defined by who it is climbing above. A social class spending its decade trying to become the class above it. They are all on the tree. They are all collectively watching a branch higher than the one they sit on. And the fruit at the top is always, as the old story says, being eaten by somebody else. So the second room closes, my friends, when the mind finally stops using other people as a mirror for its own perceived lack. When the tilting at someone else's balcony photo becomes, over time, a quiet gladness that they are simply having a beautiful evening somewhere without needing to compare it to your own. That gladness is the signature of a mind that has stopped needing to be in a different life than the one it is already in. And when the mind stops needing to be elsewhere, something strange happens. The exhaustion of the second room catches up. Every Asura, after years of climbing, is simply tired. The body has been held at low-grade alarm for so long that when the alarm finally drops, a heavy stillness, a profound quiet arrives underneath. That stillness, my friends, is the doorway to the third room. The third room is what happens when the mind falls exhausted out of the second. When comparison has emptied it out, when the climber sits down at last and does not stand up again. The body goes on autopilot. The hours slide by without anyone truly at the wheel. The tired mind, having given up the relentless climb, simply begins to obey, to follow the path of least resistance. The alarm does not surprise you anymore, does it? It goes off at the same minute it went off yesterday and the day before, and the morning stretching back behind that through a season you cannot quite remember. Your hand finds it in the dark without looking. Your feet find the floor. Your body walks itself to the kitchen while the mind is still catching up to the morning. The kettle goes on. The same mug comes down from the same shelf. The same spoon turns the same number of circles in the same cup. Somewhere in the building, someone else is doing something very similar. Somewhere in the city, 100,000 people are repeating almost identically the gestures they repeated yesterday. You have just entered the third room. The Buddha called its inhabitants the animals. In the old maps, this realm is called Tirachana, which means literally the ones who go sideways, referring to those who walk without ever lifting their heads to look, forever grazing. In Pali, the signature poison of this room has a name, and the name is moha. It means delusion, though that translation I feel is too dramatic, too harsh. Moha is closer to fog. It is the soft grayness that settles over a mind when the mind has simply stopped looking. Notice what the old teachers called this room, the realm of not seeing. The choice of word matters, my friends. The inhabitant of the third room can see. They have simply stopped. The eyes are open. The traffic is going by outside. The meetings are happening, but nobody inside is actually watching. The bodily signature of this room is perhaps the easiest to recognize, my friends. There is a certain slackness around the eyes, a distant quality. The shoulders have found a position and stopped moving, settled into a familiar slump. The breath is shallow in a particular way, simply unattended, forgotten. If someone suddenly asks you what you were thinking, you discover honestly that you are not sure. The thoughts were there a moment ago, yes, something was happening. But the one who was supposed to be watching had wandered off somewhere, and the day kept going without a witness. This, my friends, is how most adult life gets lived. The commute, the endless inbox, the 3 specific sentences you say to the barista every morning, the particular route your feet take across the office floor, the hand reaching for the phone the moment a queue forms at the supermarket. The body has learned over many years how to handle the outer shape of a day without requiring the mind to attend. And the mind, relieved of its duty, has taken a long nap. I remember once sitting on a train in a bustling city, watching the faces around me. It was 7:52 on a weekday morning. The subway car slowed into a station. The doors opened. 40 people got on. Almost every one of them was looking at the same object, the same rectangle of light held at the same angle in the same hand. No one was speaking. No one was looking up. The car accelerated, and 40 minds were carried forward together inside the same fog, each thinking they were alone in their own head. This, my friends, is a photograph, a vivid snapshot of the third room. The mind in the third room is the mind most human adults wake up inside on most days. If the Buddha was sitting on that train that morning, he would understand. He lived inside this fog himself for the first 35 years of his life before his awakening. He named this room precisely because he knew how much of a life gets lived inside it. The old texts name this state of fog, this general unawareness, as the primary trouble in the 12-link chain of suffering. The Buddha described the very first link, the one that begins the whole turning wheel, as avijja. Avijja means not knowing, not seeing, the original absence of attention. Every other suffering on the wheel you see grows from this first one. The craving, the aversion, the tilting afternoons in the second room, all of them are downstream of something much quieter, much more fundamental. The mind simply stopped looking at what was happening. There is a teaching in the Pali Canon that speaks directly to the third room, a story I often tell myself when my own mind feels hazy. A wandering seeker named Bahia had been walking for weeks, driven by a deep unease. Something had broken open in him, a premonition, a nearness to his own death that he could not shake, and he was almost running by the time he arrived at the gates of Savatthi. He found the Buddha on his alms round, walking through the morning light with a bowl in his hand. Bahia dropped to his knees, his body trembling, and begged for a teaching. The Buddha, ever patient, said now was not the time, as he was collecting food. But Bahia begged again, his voice raw with urgency. The Buddha, looking at him for a long moment, then spoke only one sentence, a sentence that echoes through the centuries. In what is seen, let there be only the seen. In what is heard, only the heard. In what is sensed, only the sensed. Bahia heard it, and something in him woke up on the spot. What did he wake from, my friends? From the fog of the third room, from the habit of receiving the world through so many layers of mental rehearsal, so many labels and assumptions that nothing ever quite truly arrives. The birds outside your window this morning, if you are honest, did not really reach you, did they? A commentary about the birds reached you, a faint label that said, bird, paired with a background assumption that you have heard birds before and know what they sound like. The actual sound, the specific pitch and length and strangeness of this particular bird on this particular morning passed through your kitchen without truly being received. This, my friends, is the quiet tragedy of the third room. The days do not pass unlived, no, they pass unwitnessed. Your own wedding, the summer your child learned to ride a bicycle, the last evenings before your father became ill. They all happened. You were there. But the one who was supposed to be keeping the record, the one who was supposed to be truly present, was somewhere else. Scrolling, planning, rehearsing future conversations, lost in the fog. And when you go looking for those afternoons in memory afterwards, you find only the faintest outline, a blurred photograph. And it is not only afternoons that are lost to the fog, it is the people in them. The partner whose mood you have not actually looked at for 3 weeks because you have been too tired, too lost in your own thoughts to lift your eyes. The old friend whose voice on a recent phone call sounded different in some small way that you registered and then let pass, too busy with your own internal chatter. The parent who was trying to tell you something the last time you saw them and you half heard it through the fog, and you are still half hearing it. And now they are not here anymore. This, my friends, is what moha costs us. The hours were already going to pass regardless. What the fog takes is your receptivity, your capacity to be changed by what you are near, by the richness of the moment. The third room does a very specific kind of damage. It makes you miss your life while it is happening. The practice that opens the door of this room has an old name. The Pali word is sati. It is usually translated as mindfulness. Though mindfulness has become such a loud word in modern life, so often repeated that it has almost stopped meaning anything, like a smooth, worn stone. A closer translation of sati, I believe, is remembering. Remembering to be here. Remembering that something is happening. Remembering that the one who was supposed to be watching, the one who was supposed to be present, is in fact available. Sati does not require a meditation cushion. No. It does not require incense or 20 minutes of silent sitting or a quiet room. It requires a single act, repeated often throughout the day. The act is this: come back. That is all. When you notice that the last 10 minutes of your life happened without you, lost in thought or habit, simply come back. Come back to the sound in the room, the crackle of the fire. Come back to the weight of your feet on the floor, on the earth. Come back to the temperature of the air on the backs of your hands. The coming back can be clumsy, my friends. The coming back can be without any grand insight at all. It still works. Something small but profound happens when you do. The room, which had been mere wallpaper, becomes a room again. The sandwich in your hand, which had been just calories, becomes bread and cheese and a specific afternoon. The child talking to you from the back of the car, who had been background noise, becomes a specific 6-year-old telling you a specific story about a specific worm she saw on the way home. The fog thins. The life that was already happening becomes perceivable again, vibrant and real. The first time sati returns after a long absence, it often arrives uninvited, a quiet grace. A glass of water is in your hand, you are walking back to your desk with it. Suddenly, for one clean second, you feel the coldness of the glass in your palm, the weight of it, the precise temperature. The experience is utterly ordinary. It is just the glass arriving. You had been holding it for half a minute before you even noticed it was there. Or another moment you have perhaps already had, my friend. You are walking home from somewhere familiar. Your attention is elsewhere, lost in the day's events. The street you are on has been walked by your feet 1,000 times. The buildings slide past in the usual order, a familiar blur. And then, for some reason you cannot name, you look up. The sky, which has been overhead the whole time, is suddenly there. An enormous silver afternoon. Clouds piled in a shape you have never seen before. Light slanting down through a gap in the trees. You stand still. You do not know how long you stand still. When you begin walking again, you are carrying the sky with you. These moments, my friends, are the natural condition of a mind that has remembered itself. The fog parts. The world, which had always been here, appears fresh and new. And the one who was supposed to be watching finally is. The old teachers who walked this path describe a quiet astonishment that comes over the practitioner in these moments. Nothing has changed in the external circumstances. You see, the commute is still the commute. The inbox is still the inbox. But something has become visible that was always visible. The ordinary was beautiful the whole time. You had simply been sleeping through it. This is why the Buddha, in so many of his talks, returned again and again to one simple instruction. Wake up. The word Buddha itself means awakened one. Simply awake. Awake in the way a person is awake the moment they step out of a warm dream into the sharp morning air. Every practitioner who begins to come back says something surprising about the first weeks. At the very start, the coming back is often uncomfortable. The fog, you see, had been doing something for them. It had been holding a feeling at arm's length, keeping it at bay. When the fog thins, the feeling is there, waiting. It had been waiting for years, sometimes decades. And when the practitioner sits still long enough to meet it, they discover that underneath. The soft gray of the third room, there is a very old hunger. That hunger, my friends, is the fourth room. The hunger is quieter than you expected. That is the first surprising thing about meeting it. You would imagined perhaps something storm-sized, a great roaring absence that would knock you sideways and announce itself with thunder. But no, the hunger of the fourth room is quieter than that. It is a low, continuous ache in the chest. An undertone you did not realize was playing until the rest of the music stopped. The Buddha called its inhabitants the pettas. English teachers usually call them the hungry ghosts. They are drawn in the old paintings with bodies that do not quite make sense. An enormous rounded belly, a mouth the size of a pinprick, a throat as thin as a needle. They are forever eating. They are forever hungry. The food goes in, or tries to, and somehow the belly never fills. You already know this body, my friend. It is the particular feeling you have 8 seconds after a package arrives at your door. The box is on the doormat. You pick it up. You carry it inside with the small, bright thrill that comes from a thing you ordered finally being here. You cut the tape. You lift the object out. You hold it in your hand. And something almost immediately has already moved on. Simply on. Your attention goes back to the phone. Another tab opens. The next thing to want is already being compared, added to a list, placed in a cart. The object in your hand, the one you wanted 10 days ago so much that you chose to spend money on it, is being carried to a shelf that already contains several other objects you once wanted and now rarely notice. The shelf keeps filling, the want keeps moving. In the old Pali texts, this mechanism has a name. The name is tanha. It means thirst. It is usually translated as craving, though thirst is closer, I think, because thirst is a thing that arises in the body without anyone choosing it, and that is what tanha is. Tanha is older than character, older than personality. It is the default. Mechanical churning of a mind that has never been taught how to rest, how to be truly still. When the Buddha, in the very first talk he gave after his awakening, named the origin of suffering, he named one single mechanism. He called it tanha. He described three shapes that thirst takes. The thirst for pleasant experience, a beautiful meal, a good film, a soft Sunday morning. The thirst to become something, someone respected, someone senior, someone the others finally stop doubting. And the thirst to get away from the body you have, from the feeling you are feeling, from the afternoon as it actually is. All three flavors run through most lives, most days, most hours, sometimes, simultaneously, like currents in a river. The old image of the hungry ghost was never literal, my friends. The enormous belly is the vastness of what the mind wants, a general, insatiable want that is always underneath the particular ones. The pinprick mouth is the tiny aperture through which real satisfaction can actually enter. The needle-thin throat is the fact that any food you try to send down it, almost none of it reaches the stomach. The bowl is never full because the bowl, you see, is the wrong shape. The fourth room appears in every arena of modern life, relentlessly. It appears at the supermarket, yes, and in the shopping cart, and on the fridge, and on the credit card statement. The hunger reaches much further than mere things. The peta is hungry for recognition, for followers on a screen, for the text back that does not come, for the parental approval that is still, even at 50, being negotiated for. It is hungry for the one compliment from the one person that would finally settle the question of whether you are lovable. It is hungry for the wedding that will finally make the relationship real, for the baby that will finally make the marriage loved, for the promotion that will finally quiet the nerves of self-doubt, for the house with the particular light in the particular neighborhood that will finally feel like home. Underneath every one of these wants, my friends, the same low, continuous note is playing. Always. Somewhere else, always something more. Never here. Never quite enough. The craving moves through objects, yes, but objects are only the shape it is wearing this afternoon. Tomorrow, it will wear a different shape. A relationship, a role, a particular version of yourself you have been trying for years to become. And when you finally become it, somewhere in the second week of having become it, the wanting has already left, hasn't it? It has moved to the next ridge. It is waving at you from there, urging you onward. There is a verse in the Dhammapada that describes this with such clarity. The Buddha said that craving in an unawakened mind grows like a creeper. Feed it, and it spreads along the ground, and then up the walls, and then across the roof, relentlessly. Cut off one shoot and 3 more appear. Give the creeper what it wants, and it grows. Refuse to water it, however, and eventually it falls away, starved. This, my friends, is the teaching the practitioner meets in. the fourth room. Every acquisition feeds the creeper. Every successful pursuit strengthens the mechanism of pursuing. The difficulty of the hungry ghost is this: wanting has become its entire mode of being alive. You can see this in the specific architecture of a day. Your day. Wake. Reach for the phone. Scroll through other people's highlights, which are curated glimpses of things you do not yet have. A new restaurant opening, a colleague promoted, a friend on a beach in a country you have been meaning to go to. Each of these images quietly becomes, for the mind, another shoot of the creeper. By the time you are in the shower, you are already composing a small list of future acquisitions, none of which you were even thinking about when you went to bed. Now comes the discovery the old teachers kept pointing to, a profound reframing. The ghost is thirsty, not greedy. That single reframing changes everything. Greed assumes a grasping self who should know better, who is doing something wrong. Thirst, however, assumes only a body in a condition. The body is parched. Of course it reaches for water, for anything that promises relief. The real question, my friends, is whether the water it is reaching for can actually quench that thirst, or if it is merely salt water, making the thirst greater. And here is what any practitioner who sits still for long enough eventually sees. The hunger arises in the chest, a quiet ache, before any object appears to blame for it. The object gets blamed, you see, because the object is what the attention notices in the moment the sensation is loudest. The sensation was there before the object, and it will be thereafter. The object is merely a costume. The hunger is the body underneath. The practice in this room, my friends, is simple and yet very difficult. When the wanting arises, that low ache, that subtle pull, do not feed it. Do not fight it. Do not ask it to be quieter, to go away. Simply sit with it. Feel it. Let it be there in the chest, in the stomach, in the slight quickening of the breath. Watch what it does when nobody acts on it, when you simply offer it your quiet attention. At first, the wanting fights you. It does. The mind generates reasons, compelling arguments. Just this once. Surely it would be fine. Think of how much better you would feel. Think of how much you have earned it. The reasons are convincing, my friends. The way thirst makes salt water look convincing to a parched traveler, promising relief. But if you can stay with the thirst itself, with the raw sensation rather than chasing its story, something begins to soften. What the wanting does, if you can manage to stay with it, is astonishing. It rises, it peaks, it falls, exactly like a wave on the ocean. The wave that felt in its rising like a lifelong condition, an inescapable fate, is revealed by 1 minute of quiet attention to be a temporary weather pattern. It came, it went, and you, sitting on the shore of it, did not have to do anything at all. This is what the Dharma map calls the lotus leaf. Water falls on the lotus leaf, and the leaf does not hold it. The water beads, the water rolls off, the leaf stays dry. A mind that has learned to let craving rise and fall without chasing it becomes, over time, that kind of leaf. Life still happens on top of it. Hunger still arises, but the hunger no longer soaks in, no longer penetrates to the core. The first time this happens, even for a few seconds, is quietly astonishing. You wanted something 10 minutes ago. The wanting was loud, insistent. You sat with it instead of acting on it. And now, Without anything being acquired, without any satisfaction being delivered, the wanting has simply left. The room, which had felt unbearable without that particular thing, is now simply a room. A room containing you, breathing, unacquired, and for some reason, no longer in pain. This, my friends, is the first drink of real water. The fourth room, you see, shows up at every scale. Whole economies run on it. Entire advertising industries exist, deliberately engineered to keep the throat narrow and the want moving. A device in your pocket, designed by some of the most brilliant minds of a generation, has as its single engineering goal the continuous multiplication of small thirsts. Every scroll, every notification is a drop of salt water. It tastes for 1 second like it quenches. Then the thirst, slightly larger, returns. The hungry ghost, therefore, is a water system the modern world has been engineered deliberately to keep you inside of. The condition is mechanical, my friends. Knowing this is a kind of mercy, I believe. It removes the shame from the diagnosis. The shame was just another shoot of the creeper. Every practitioner who begins to walk out of the fourth room describes the same thing about the way out. The hunger continues to arise, yes. It simply stops being a command. It becomes something you notice. The way you notice whether there is wanting today, you think, and then you simply do what is in front of you. And the wanting eventually passes through. And for most practitioners, this is where the journey could end. The first 4 rooms have been walked through. The creeper has been trimmed. There is, underneath all of it, a strange, quiet beginning to gather. For some practitioners, however, on some nights, there is one more room to enter. Below the hunger, further down than any of the first 4, there is a room the old teachers spoke of with unusual gentleness, a deep compassion. A room where the mind has become so exhausted by its own unmet wanting that the wanting itself has curdled. The thirst has turned into something sharper, something that can wound the mind that carries it, and wound any person the mind reaches toward. That room, my friends, is the 5th one. There is a voice you know, isn't there? It does not arrive as a stranger. It speaks in your own vocabulary, in the cadence of your own thinking, using the private words that only someone inside your life would know. That is what makes it so convincing. That is what makes it feel, when it speaks, like it is telling the truth. The voice tells you what you are. It does so with remarkable precision. It reminds you of the thing you said at dinner 7 years ago, that awkward remark. It replays the moment in the interview when your voice cracked and you felt a flush of shame. It lists in order the specific ways you have failed the people who trusted you, the promises you couldn't keep. And it does all this calmly, dispassionately, like a prosecutor who has already won the case. You have spent years learning the voice's moves, haven't you? It knows your name. It knows the particular way you embarrass yourself in meetings. It knows the face you make when you catch your own reflection in a shop window and flinch, noticing a perceived flaw. It has memorized every unanswered text, every canceled plan, every friendship that is cooled without explanation. And it has arranged these facts into an argument you have lost before you have even spoken a word. The old teachers mapped this territory with care. They called the room Naraka. English teachers usually translate the word as hell, but the translation is imperfect, my friends. Hell in the Western imagination is often eternal, a place of no return. Naraka in the Buddhist map is temporary. Every being who enters Naraka eventually leaves. The room is a room, even this one. Notice the bodily signature, my friends. The shoulders are up around the ears, tight, braced. The jaw is clenched, a hard knot. The breath is high in the chest, shallow, rapid, like a bird fluttering against a cage. The eyes, if they are looking at anything, are looking at a specific image on the screen of the mind. The email, the conversation, the person. And the image is being held there, turned over, fed, relived. The body is preparing silently for a fight. That will never happen because the opponent is not in the room. The opponent, you see, is inside. Naraka takes two shapes, my friends. In one shape, the hatred, the aversion, is turned outward. A colleague wronged you. A family member said the thing they should never have said. A stranger on the road cut you off, rudely. And now, 3 hours later, you are still arguing with them inside your head, crafting brilliant retorts that will never be heard. The argument will not end. The body stays braced, tense. The mind produces sentence after sentence of devastating clarity, none of which will ever be spoken to the person who is no longer there. In the other shape, the hatred is turned inward. This shape is quieter, colder, and in many ways, harder to leave. The mind has become a prosecutor whose only case is against the very self who is thinking the thoughts. The evidence is endless because the mind writes it in real time, constantly. Every small mistake is filed away. Every awkward moment is Exhibit A. Every text that went unanswered becomes proof of some deeper, older, more terrible wrongness. The two shapes, you see, often braid together. The mind that spent the morning rehearsing an argument with the colleague, by afternoon has turned the same biting energy inward and is now rehearsing an argument with itself about why it is the kind of person who rehearses arguments. Outer hatred has a way of becoming inner hatred when the outer target moves out of reach. The fire does not mind which direction it burns. The Pali word for the poison of this room is dosa. It is often translated as hatred, though aversion is closer, I feel. Dosa is the mind's response when something arises that it simply cannot bear to be with. The something can be another person, yes, but the something can also be your own face in the mirror, your own perceived failings. In either case, the mind contracts. It pushes away. It wants the thing to be other than it is. When the thing refuses to change, the pushing turns into pain, and the pain turns into fuel for more pushing. This, my friends, is the self-generating fire of Naraka. The old teachers were emphatic about one thing. Naraka is temporary. In the old cosmology, the fire is described in vivid detail, but every description ends with the same phrase. Beings dwell there for many lifetimes, and then the karmic fruit of their actions exhausts itself, and they are born elsewhere. Nothing stays, my friends. Not joy, not comfort, not even the deepest contraction a mind can generate. The wheel keeps turning, even in the hottest room. Apply this to your own life, my dear one. The period you could not get out of bed when the world felt too heavy to face. The year you thought would never end, stretching out like an arid desert. The stretch of grief or rage or self-hatred so total, it seemed to be the new, permanent climate of your being, eventually passed, didn't it? You may not remember the precise moment it stopped being unbearable. That, I believe, is part of how it stopped. 100. Small, unnoticed moments added up, like grains of sand, and at some point you realized, looking back, that you were not sitting in that same room anymore. The Buddhist teaching here is precise. There is no eternal hell in this map. Every being who enters Naraka eventually exits it, even if only after what felt like forever. In the Majjhima Nikaya, the Buddha describes what happens to those who have lived inside Naraka for what seemed like endless time. He says simply, eventually they too awaken. Eventually they too are born into a realm where kindness can be learned. The door, my friends, is always somewhere in the wall, even when you cannot see it from where you are sitting, consumed by the flames of self-criticism. Here is what the practitioner discovers in this room, sometimes by accident, by sheer grace. Even in the worst of it, the mind does not generate that harsh voice continuously. There are gaps, brief pauses, a half second when you notice the light on the kitchen counter, or the smell of wood smoke from this fire, before the voice starts up again. A breath that goes in and comes out, full and deep, before the prosecution resumes its relentless case. A moment when you make your tea, and the tea is good, truly good. And for 3 seconds, the fifth room has no power over you. Those gaps, my friends, are the door. They happen all day, not as rewards for advanced practitioners, no, but as the natural rhythm of any mind, even one in the middle of the fifth room. The practice is to notice them, to feel, even for 3 seconds, the difference between the mind that is braced, clenched, and the mind that is simply breathing, simply present. That noticing is already the first breath out, the first step towards the door. There is a verse in the Dhammapada that speaks directly to the mind in this room. The Buddha said the practitioner should establish kindness first within themselves, before reaching outward to teach anyone else. The order matters, my friends. The practitioner who cannot be kind to their own tired mind at the end of a long day cannot be sustainably kind to the child sitting across the table from them. The same practitioner refusing to forgive themselves for that dinner 7 years ago is refusing implicitly to forgive anyone else for anything. Kindness, the Buddha said, begins at home. The practice the Buddha taught for this room has an old name. The Pali word is metta. It is usually translated as loving kindness, though the truer sense, I believe, is friendliness, being toward yourself what a good friend would be toward someone they loved, someone they cherished. A friend who, seeing you in the kitchen at the end of a bad day, would not sit down across from you and list your failures. No. A friend would put their hand on your shoulder. A friend would ask you what you had eaten. A friend would refuse plainly to let you continue to be spoken to the way you have been speaking to yourself. Metta is practical, my friends. It is a physical rearrangement of how the inside of the skull treats the person who lives there. It can be practiced in one simple sentence, a quiet whisper to your own heart. May I be well. May I be at ease. May I, for this one breath, be allowed to rest from the prosecution. Say the sentence quietly to yourself the next time the voice begins its relentless monologue. It will not silence the voice the first time. No, the voice has been speaking for decades after all. But something else will happen. A small softening in the chest, a slight relaxation in the shoulders, the sense that for 1 second, one precious second, you have placed yourself on your own side. If you can say the sentence a second time, something else shifts. A small image may arise in your mind. The face of yourself as a child, perhaps. The morning you cried in the school bathroom and nobody knew. The teenager who tried so hard to be liked, to fit in. You may find that in a way you did not expect, you begin to speak the sentence toward that earlier version of yourself. May you be well. May you be at ease. The prosecution stumbles for a moment. The courtroom grows quieter. The judge, it turns out, was tired too. On the days when even the sentence feels impossible, when the words won't form, there is something else, my friends. A glass of water, drunk slowly, mindfully. A shower you stand inside of longer than you thought you needed, letting the warm water wash away the tension. A blanket pulled up to your chin, offering comfort. The act of feeding yourself something warm, nourishing. These are metta, too. Kindness is in the body before it is in the sentence. The practitioner who does this often enough begins to notice something the old texts describe. The fifth room does not have locks on its doors. The doors were never locked, you see. What kept you inside was the habit of taking the voice to be your own thinking, rather than noticing it as weather passing through, a transient pattern. The moment you meet the voice with metta instead of agreement, instead of resistance, the door becomes visible. The door has been there the whole time. For some minds, in some seasons, the voice in this room becomes louder than any single practice can reach. The old teachers, asked about such times, spoke plainly. They said a mind in severe pain needs companions, a sangha, a community, a guide who has walked the path. The modern equivalent is the therapist, the doctor, the trusted friend who will sit with you without trying to fix you, just listening. The path does not require you to walk the hardest parts alone. The fifth room is impermanent, my friends, like every other room on the wheel. The fire burns down, the creeper withers when it is refused water. The fog thins when the one who is supposed to be watching finally does. The mountain of comfort eventually stops being a mountain. The private scoreboard empties itself when nobody is keeping score. 5 rooms, 5 conditions, all of them temporary. Above the fire, below the heavens, between the hungry and the hunted, one room remains. It is the one you are listening from now. The old teachers said something strange about it. Of every billion births across every realm on the wheel, this is the one where awakening actually becomes possible. The reason, you see, is balance. The exact proportion of suffering and freedom in this room is the only ratio where waking up can actually take root. And the proportion is here, in this body, in this evening, in whatever you are feeling while these words reach you. I often think of an ancient story, a simile the Buddha himself used. Imagine a turtle swimming in a vast ocean. The turtle is blind. It has been swimming for a very long time, for an eternity almost. And the ocean, my friends, is larger than any ocean you have ever seen. It extends in every direction with no shore and no bottom that the turtle can feel. Once every 100 years, the turtle rises to the surface to take a single breath of air. Then it descends again into the silent depths. On the surface of this boundless ocean, floating somewhere at random, drifting with the currents, there is one wooden yoke. The yoke is small, a simple ring of wood with a single hole in it, just large enough for the turtle's head to pass through. The ocean is so vast that the yoke might be on one side of the world and the turtle might rise on the other. Once every 100 years, the turtle surfaces. And the question the old teachers asked was this: what are the odds that on one of those centennial breaths, the turtle will rise with its head passing cleanly through the hole in the yoke? Take your time with this image, my friend. The ocean is enormous. The turtle is one tiny turtle. The yoke is one small ring of wood, roughly the size of a dinner plate. The ocean does not care about the turtle. The wind pushes the yoke in directions the turtle cannot see, has never seen, would not recognize as relevant. 100 years pass, the turtle takes its breath and descends. 100 more years pass. The breath is taken. The descent begins again. Imagine the slowness of this. Imagine the patience of the turtle, who does not even know it is part of a simile. The Buddha used this image, my friends, to describe the rarity of being born as a human being. Shantideva, an 8th century monk who loved this simile, wrote about it to remind his readers what their lives truly were. Of all the forms of existence on the wheel, the gods in their soft, blinding light, the demigods in their private, endless war, the animals in their fog, the hungry ghosts in their narrow throats, the beings in Naraka and their consuming fire, the realm you have arrived into, this human realm, is the rarest. Why the human realm? Because of a precise balance the other realms utterly lack. Consider what the Buddha pointed to. The Deva realm is too comfortable. The beings there have so much pleasure that they never look deeply enough to wonder why they suffer. They cannot see the whole wheel, cannot question it. The demigod realm is too competitive. The mind never rests long enough, never turns inward enough to truly understand itself. The animal realm is too foggy. Instinct covers the ground that awareness would need to walk, preventing deeper insight. The hungry ghost realm is too hungry. The mind cannot stop reaching long enough to sit still, to simply be. And Naraka is too loud. The fire of reactivity, of pain, of self-criticism drowns out every softer voice, every gentle whisper of truth. Only in the human realm does a mind meet the precise conditions it needs. Enough suffering that the question of suffering arises at all, that the desire for liberation sparks, and enough freedom that the question can actually be looked at, examined, understood. The mixture is uncomfortable, my friends, on purpose. Comfort would be the Deva realm, and comfort, for all its appeal, is a hiding place. The human condition you have been complaining about, that familiar ache in your heart, that weariness in your bones, is the exact mixture the Buddha spent 40 years telling his students was irreplaceable, precious, beyond measure. Most people, when they think about their life, think of it as one among many similar lives, a life among billions, a small, ordinary life, probably in the middle of a very large population. But the Buddhist map says something different, something quite profound. Of the countless forms existence can take, almost none can practice the Dharma, can truly understand and walk this path. Most cannot even form the question of suffering clearly enough to sit with it, to examine it. The form you are currently inside, this human body, this breathing mind, is statistically a miracle. Sit with that for a moment, my dear ones. Whatever you were irritated about today, whatever stretched your patience, whatever made the evening feel like a burden, all of it is happening inside a condition so statistically unlikely that the old teachers reserved their most precise simile for it. The blind turtle surfaced, and the yoke was there. Consider the chain that carried you here tonight, to this fire, to these words. Your parents had to meet, and the parents of your parents, and theirs before them, stretching back across centuries of improbable breakfasts and overheard sentences and shared umbrellas. If one of those breakfasts had gone differently somewhere in the 1700s, you would not be breathing tonight, listening to the crickets. A language had to survive. A teaching had to be written down then, rewritten, then translated across continents, across generations. A specific human being had to record the sentence you are currently listening to, that chain of unlikely events converging in this very moment. The whole long, improbable chain converged, and here you are, breathing, receiving it. In the Pali Canon, the Buddha listed 8 states in which it is difficult or impossible to practice the Dharma. Being born in a realm of acute pain where the mind cannot settle. Being born in a realm of acute pleasure where the mind does not bother. Being born as an animal, foggy, driven by instinct. Being born in a place where no teaching of awakening has ever reached. Being born in a time when the teaching has been forgotten, lost to history. Being born with mistaken views, so deep the teaching cannot enter. Being born without the faculties required to receive instruction, without the capacity to hear and understand. And perhaps most poignantly, being born at a moment when no awakened teacher is available to point the way. Listen to where you are in that list, my friend. You are in none of those 8. You are inside the human realm. You have access to language, which means you have access to teaching. You have faculties enough to receive an idea and turn it over in your mind. You are alive in a time when the Dharma has been preserved, translated, transmitted across centuries, and is being carried to you right now through the quiet magic of sound. This is, by any reasonable accounting, extraordinary. Let this land, my dear ones. You are in the rarest of the 6 rooms, and the rarity has nothing to do with ease. Your life may be exhausting. Your body may hurt in familiar places. Your bank account may be low and your inbox may be high, overflowing with demands. None of that changes what room you are in. The room is rare because of the shape of the window. The shape of the window is what makes awakening possible at all. The old teachers returned to this image again and again. One of them said that having received this birth, this precious human existence, and having not yet used it for awakening, is like someone who wanders into a treasury full of jewels and picks up the broom. The broom was never what the treasury was for, was it? The broom for most lives is the whole point of the day. Get through it. Sweep the floor, go to sleep. The old teachers said gently but firmly that it is possible to put the broom down for a moment and look around. Perhaps the strangest thing about this realm, this human room, is what awakening looks like inside it. Awakening does not require a cave, no. A robe is optional. 20 years of silent retreat may help, and they may not. Many of the Buddha's own students awakened in very unlikely circumstances. Some awakened while hearing a single sentence on the road, others while washing dishes, one while holding his dying child, his heart broken open by grief and love. The condition for awakening has always been the ordinary human condition. met with a specific quality of attention. Sometimes the recognition happens while you are drying a dish and the water is falling off the plate, and you notice for the first time in months that you are the one doing the drying. The kitchen stays a kitchen, the plate stays a plate. But something else has arrived. An attention that was not there a moment ago. The turtle, without meaning to, has just raised its head, its eyes open to the sky. Which means the teaching arrives at a very practical place, my friends. Do not wait for a better life to begin. The better life was never going to arrive. The life you have is the one the turtle surfaced into. The exhausted evening, the unfinished conversation with your mother, the job that still has 2 emails in it you have not yet answered. The body that aches in a place you are hoping will resolve on its own. This, my friend, is the yoke, and your head is already through it. Now, feel quietly what this does to the evening. The cup of tea you are holding is not a consolation for a smaller life you did not get. The cup of tea is the treasury. The lamp glowing softly by your side is the treasury. The body breathing through its tired evening is the treasury. Whatever you have been counting as the background of a more important life you were supposed to be having, this, my dear ones, this is the thing itself. Try this. Look up wherever you are. Whatever is in your field of vision right now, a ceiling, a window, the face of a person you know, the inside of an empty room, is being received by a mind in the rarest condition the wheel offers. No one in any other realm is receiving a view quite like this one. Dazzled, hungry, braced, foggy, climbing. The minds in the other rooms are busy in ways that keep the view from truly arriving. The room where this view is available, you have arrived in. It is the hand you were dealt. Perhaps something shifts while you are listening to this. A small reorganization happens in the chest. The day that seemed an hour ago mostly a series of failed attempts to be productive begins to look different from a slightly different angle. The failing was happening inside a miracle. So was the productivity. So was the irritation, the long commute, the bad sleep, the way you did not quite finish what you meant to finish. The awe, when it arrives, is quieter than awe usually sounds. It feels like a softening, a slight relaxing of the grip with which you have been holding your own life, an opening of the hand around the day that has been in it. The day was always going to be this day exactly as it unfolded. The grip was the only thing that was optional. You may find in this softening that some small weight you had been carrying begins to lift. The comparison you have been quietly making between your life and the one you thought you should have had starts to lose its force. This is the only life that was ever coming, my friends. However tired it has been, however ordinary, however full of unanswered texts and unfinished projects, it is the life 1,000 unlikely conditions delivered you into for a reason that old teachers called precious. The preciousness lies in the clarity of the window. Awareness in this room can reach what awareness in no other room can reach. Something else happens when the softening lands. The sense that you have been running late for something, always behind, evaporates. The appointment was always this evening in this body. Listening to these words, you arrived on time for a meeting you did not even know was scheduled. The meeting is with the human condition itself, and it has been waiting patiently to welcome you. One question follows from all of this, and the old teachers said it plainly. If this is the rarest birth, and if the door has been in the wall of this room the whole time, then how does a person walk through it? The Buddha's answer was brief, almost deceptively simple. 4 truths, 8 steps, and underneath both, a single foundation stone. A thing so small that most spiritual traditions would not bother to name it because it seems too modest to be what everything else rests on. The foundation stone, my friends, is intention. Before the day has truly begun, before your feet are on the floor, before the kettle starts to sing, before the coffee aroma fills the air, there is a moment. The room is still dark, the body is still soft with sleep. The mind has not yet gathered itself into its usual architecture of worries and plans. In that moment, before anything has been decided, you have a choice. Most people, you see, are not aware they are making it. For years, they have been making it, unconsciously, letting the mind settle in whichever direction the previous day left it. The choice is small. It is the choice of which direction to turn the morning, the day, the moment. The Buddha had a name for this choice. The Pali word is cetana. It is usually translated as intention, though a truer sense, I believe, is volition, the subtle direction in which a mind leans before it acts, before it speaks, before it even fully thinks. Most of what we call our actions are downstream of cetana. A person does not decide in any deep way to snap at their partner over breakfast. No. The mind was already leaning towards a snap several moments earlier, while it was still drinking its first cup of coffee, while it was still lost in its own internal monologue. The harsh words came later. The direction, the leaning, came first. The old teachers gave a specific example of this, one I often reflect on. A person sits down to write a difficult email, perhaps one that has been weighing on them. They feel in the chest a tight and angry leaning, a desire to lash out. The hands begin to type. 3 sentences later, the email has become cruel, biting, accusatory. The same person, on another morning, sits down to write the very same email, but with a different leaning in the chest. Patient, perhaps. Slightly sad, willing to see the other person's side, willing to offer understanding. 3 sentences later, the email is honest, firm, and clear, but without malice. The words are different, you see, because the leaning was different. The words were never really the question. In the Anguttara Nikaya, the Buddha made a statement that surprised many of his listeners, even those who had followed him for years. He said, "Cetana is what I call karma." Cetana, intention. The 2 words, which most traditions of the time treated as separate, karma as the result of action, intention as a mere thought, the Buddha insisted were the same thing. Your karma, my friends, is not made by your actions alone. Your karma is made by the direction your mind was leaning when the actions happened. This, you see, rearranges what a person thinks they are responsible for. It moves the weight of a life from the outside to the inside, to the heart of each moment. Here is what the teaching does, my dear ones. It places the door inside every single moment. Every breath is a chance. Every sentence you utter, every choice between replying now or replying after a pause, a moment of reflection. Every walk to the kitchen. The door has been in the wall of each of those moments the whole time. You simply did not know you could turn the handle. If karma is intention, then karma lives entirely in the present. It is the direction your mind is leaning right now, before the action, before the word, before the consequence fully unfolds. And the direction your mind is leaning, my friends, can be adjusted. Tiny adjustments, made often in a single direction, slowly bend the whole wheel of your experience. The Buddha organized the path into 4 truths. They are brief enough to say in a few sentences, like the core of a melody. Suffering is here. Something specific causes it. It can end. A way leads to that ending. Everything else in the vast Buddhist canon, all the scrolls and commentaries, is simply commentary on those 4. You already know the first one, my friends. Suffering is here, in the body that has not quite slept enough, in the relationship that is not quite healed, in the shoulder that has begun to ache in the afternoons. You know the second one. Something specific causes it, which is the craving and the aversion and the fog the 6 rooms have mapped out for us tonight. The third is the surprising one, the one that offers true hope. It can end. The sensation of living continues, of course, the joys and sorrows, but the dukkha, the suffering, the unsatisfactoriness, inside the sensation can loosen, and then, over time, can end altogether. The 4th truth is quietly the rest of the stories you have been listening to. The path itself. The way has 8 parts. The old teachers pointed with some humor at how ordinary those 8 parts are. Right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration. Every one of these happens in the ordinary morning, in the mundane moments of your day. They live in the kitchen, in the hallway between bedrooms, at the crosswalk, in the moment between reading a provocative email and deciding how to reply. Consider what each one looks like in practice, my friends, not as grand ideals, but as small, accessible movements of the mind. Right view is the willingness to see the wheel for what it is, to know that the argument you are about to rehearse in your head is the 2nd room, the Asura realm, to know that the scroll you are reaching for is the 4th room, the hungry ghost, to know and to keep walking anyway, until walking becomes choosing, becomes waking. Right. Intention is the willingness to lean toward kindness before you even know what you will say. Right speech is the sentence that comes out of that leaning, softened by that intention. Right action is the body completing what the mind intended, with care and awareness. Right livelihood is the quiet question of whether the way you make your money is consistent with the direction you want your mind to lean. A question to sit with over time, gently turning it over like a smooth stone. Right effort is gentle, my friends. Practice lives in the patient return of attention, thousands of times a day, to whatever is in front of it, to whatever is happening right here. Right mindfulness is what you learned in the 3rd room, coming back, simply, returning. Right concentration is what happens to the mind when the coming back has been practiced long enough to become steady, unwavering, like a candle flame in a still room. You can practice any of these in one breath, my friend. Right intention. The next breath you take it with the clear understanding that kindness is your starting point, your gentle leaning. Right speech. The next sentence you are about to type, pause for 1 second before you type it and ask whether it increases kindness or erodes it. right action. The next thing you are about to do with your hands, do it as if the doing truly matters, as if it is sacred. These are almost embarrassingly small, aren't they? That is precisely why they work. The wheel is turned by small things done often, my friends. Big gestures done rarely change the deep weather of a mind. Think of it this way. A year from now, you will be somebody, a person with a certain nervous system, a certain capacity for patience, a certain quality of attention. That future person is being written right now by the Chaitanya of this week, by the direction in which most mornings you have leaned. There is a verse at the opening of the Dhammapada that most practitioners meet early and spend the rest of their lives returning to. The mind is the forerunner of all things. What we think, we become. The verse is translated many ways, but its point is simple. What you practice, you grow into. The mind that has practiced kindness for 1 week leans more easily toward kindness in week 2. The mind that has practiced attention for 1 month arrives in the 2nd month, already half attending without being asked, without needing to be prodded. The path is accumulative, my friends. That is its mercy. You will not notice it happening. The changes inside a consistent practice are too gradual to perceive from inside, like watching a tree grow. Other people may notice first. A colleague will say you seem calmer, more present. A friend will comment that the phone calls go smoother, less fraught. The person you live with may one evening say something about how you handled a small difficulty that used to rattle you, used to throw you off balance. And the way they say it will make clear that something has subtly shifted. You, my friend, will be surprised. The shifts to the mind doing the practicing felt like nothing, like small whispers. To the people around you, they have been visible for weeks, perhaps months. Let the accumulation begin tomorrow, my dear ones. When you wake, before anything has started, take one breath that you truly notice. Let that be the first act of the day. Set silently a single direction for the morning, not a rigid plan, but a gentle leaning. May I lean toward kindness today. May I lean toward attention. May I lean toward honesty in the small sentences I will say to people in the next hour. That, my friends, is the entire practice. The rest is staying with it when the day begins to pull, as it surely will. Then come the hours. An hour is long enough for the mind to forget what it leaned toward at dawn, to drift back into old habits. The practice, then, is the returning. Every time you remember, come back to the leaning. The coffee was going to be had anyway. The email was going to be replied to anyway. The question is only which direction your mind was facing while it happened. Then come the days. A day is long enough for the wheel to turn through all 6 rooms at least once, perhaps many times. You will visit the 5th room in the afternoon, the realm of self-criticism. You will visit the 4th room at lunch, the hungry ghost craving. The 1st room may receive you briefly in a soft moment before bed, a fleeting paradise. In each of them, the same small practice applies. Notice the room. Breathe once, deeply, gently. Choose the direction of the next moment, the next thought, the next word. This, my friends, is the path the Buddha taught. 4 truths, 8 parts, 1 foundation stone. And underneath all of it, the quiet, almost invisible, entirely mundane fact that the door is always the next moment. The door has always been the next moment. The teaching has been delivered for tonight, my dear ones. What remains now is the rest after the teaching, the space that opens when the words stop and the body keeps breathing here by the fire. The wheel, for one quiet stretch, turning perhaps a little more slowly than it was when you sat down. The body is still in the chair. The lamp is still on, casting its gentle light. The evening is still the evening. The person you were when this began is, in most ways, the same person still sitting here. But something small has moved, hasn't it? The mind came here looking for an answer. It may have found instead a way to sit with the question, with the quiet hum of life itself. Tomorrow the wheel will turn again, and the day after, and the week after that. The 6 rooms will open and close in their familiar order. The comfortable one at dawn, the foggy one at lunch, the hungry one in the afternoon. Each room will receive you for a time, and then quietly the next. The difference from tonight onward is that the rooms have names. A named room, my friends, is a different kind of room. A named room has a door. Breathe once, if you would like to. Notice where you are. The chair under you, the air in the room, the small hum of the moment that is passing. The wheel has been turning for a very long time, yes. Tonight perhaps it is turning a little more slowly, a little more gently, and the quiet promise of dawn is just beyond the window.